Robert Plank Show, episode 36. Keep it stupidly simple. Welcome back to the Robert Plank Show, where we talk about making money. So my business partner, Lance Thomas Sherwood, and I have a saying that's called, sell what you sell. And this is something that we just keep coming across when we get frustrated because, if I go around and I see a course that I want to buy about how to get Facebook traffic, I don't pretend to know 110,000% of everything there is to know about Facebook. I'm always open to new stuff. So I'll go and I'll find a course on traffic, and I'll go and buy this new course, and they'll say, well, it's only $17. So I'll buy that, and then they'll say, well, for another $27, we're going to actually give you videos about what you thought you just bought. And I look at the sales that are for both, and I'm like, these look kind of similar. I thought I was buying a course that would actually show me how to do these ads, but it turns out I look at it very carefully, and it's like, oh, the $17 product I was going to buy just had these PowerPoints, and that was it. So that's not very helpful. So then I was like, okay, so I have to buy this other thing in order to get the actual video. So all right, fine. Fine. $17 plus 27, I would have paid that anyway. So then I buy that, and they say, oh, turns out that if you that the videos that we were going to show you, well, they only show a couple things here and there. But if you want to buy also the case studies, you have to pay $47. And I go, fine. And there's all these people who they geek out about upsells and downsells, conversion rates, and then I look at when I actually go through that process, and I think I would have just paid $97 for this whole package if you just had stopped me from trying to commitment and consistency me in, or try to get me to buy one thing and another thing. And I look at some of these people who geek out about funnels, and some people do it okay, some people really go off in the wrong direction. I look at their web pages, their sales letters, and I think, well, no wonder you have to bait and switch, and no wonder you have to sneak in 3 low ticket products instead of 1 high ticket product. So I look at your sales letter, and I can't even understand what it is you're selling. It's one of those ones where it's multiple columns, giant graphics, all kinds of bright colors, and there's only 5 words on the page, and it's well, I'm supposed to understand what I'm buying. I know it looks good. I know it looks like the new Web 3.0 kind of web pages, but I can't do anything other than just gamble based on what it is that you're showing me on that web page. And so out of all the possible things you can do, it's just today we're going to talk about how it's funny how the simplest things, going back to that, is usually what solves the problem. And in more than one case, it's a long-form sales letter. And I've been seeing more and more often, you see these fancy new-looking kinds of web pages, right? And you can just tell that somebody bought a template, and that the person who designed it was thinking in terms of form over function, which means that they wanted it to look pretty, but they didn't have an idea how it was going to be used. So you can just kind of see there's these web pages where maybe it's there's a big blue stripe on the top, 6 inches of the whole web page, and the rest is white, and it looks pretty good and clean. It's got lots of white space, but what's really funny is you can tell the template was meant to have about 5 words on it, but a lot of these marketers who are doing well, they're adding in a bunch of words. So it starts off as one of these artsy-fartsy, you've seen them, giant graphics, giant text, very little text, but then as you scroll down, it kind of devolves into a long-form sales letter. Just like a piece of paper that you'd get in the old-fashioned snail mail with a logical argument about why you'd need this thing. So with copywriting, what do? We start off with the reason someone came to our web page, right? This is called attention. This is called setting up the problem. We add the pain, and we say, okay, well, you landed on this page because you're looking for a gluten-free kind of solution for your dog, and maybe you can tell a quick little story and say, you know what, I went through the same thing. My dog was always kind of just kind of lounging around and maybe throwing up and always kind of sick, and the vets didn't know what was going on until one day we decided, well, let's just try some of this gluten-free dog food. And then we realized that, wow, that's solve the problem. But then that opened up that, we didn't know what kinds, or we didn't know if it was something else, or it was expensive. And so what I realized was I figured out a way to cook my own gluten-free dog food. Takes 5 minutes, costs $5, and there we go. So introducing, boom, my gluten-free dog recipe course, and here's why I made it, here's what it is, and then let me break down each piece, and let me put every little piece into a nice little, like a nice table so I can see everything all in one place, and then here's the guarantee, and go ahead and buy it. It's all you really need to have in there. So, I mean, you can look at all these, like, selling books or this and that, and at the end of the day, that's the template you need to follow. And everything else, no matter how hard they try, is just a derivative of that. And speaking of derivatives, I mean, if you heard of this book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and it says all these really cool things, and it's a little tough to read because it's old-timey written language, but he basically went out for 20 years and interviewed all these, millionaires and things like that. And, he listed all these things, but at the end of the day, the biggest advantage is imagination. And I know there's, there's like overwhelming desire and the mastermind and all these other components, but out of all the things in that book, the number one thing is just that the most successful people were able to use their imagination to help them instead of hurt them. So instead of using it to get themselves get distracted, they would have a clear goal, and every day they would, imagine themselves at the goal and work themselves up and get excited, and then fill in the gaps and figure out what it is they needed to get from where they are to where they want to be. Have you heard of this book called 4-Hour Workweek? A few years ago, I bought about 100 copies of it from this guy named Tim Ferriss, and he says all these really cool things, but if you look at it at the end of the day, out of all the things he says, there's this thing called the 80-20 rule, which is that 80% of what you do is a waste. So if you look at your day-to-day life and you say, okay, and I mean, in his case, a big chunk of it is quitting your day job, and you look at, well, what's the 80% of my day that's wasted? If I spend, 8 hours at this job and it takes me an hour each way to commute and there's a lunch break in the middle, well then, geez, 11, 12 hours out of the day is wasted on being paid this dollar figure, and if I can figure out a way to exceed this dollar figure with less hours by working from home, well then there we go. Or if I can save X amount of dollars every month and then put it into this, mutual fund, and I just like keep building and building it, pays back out, well then cool, now I've replaced my day job. There's another book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. You heard of this one? It seems to be the one where a lot of these like business nerds seem to recommend it. And I read it maybe 7 years ago, I want to say, maybe 8 years ago. And he says all these things, and and it's kind of like a think and Grow Rich for the modern age, where he looks at all these successful companies, successful CEOs. He looks at things like how Walgreens used to sell sandwiches, but they 80-20 themselves out and figured, well, we'd make more money doing less if we didn't sell sandwiches. And at the end of the day, that book just pretty much says have a hedgehog concept, function, something like a hedgehog action, something like that. And it just means that you need to be good at one thing. So if you're Walgreens and you're a gas station, convenience store, developing photos, making sandwiches, look at all those things, and usually there's one of those things that actually pays out the best with the least amount of work. Maybe a year ago, 6 months ago, I read a book called The EMyth, which is also pretty good. And out of all the things that he said, well, you need to have a checklist. Out of the things that you do, even if they're second nature to you, have a checklist. That way you won't miss steps. That way you can take inventory of all the various job titles you have, because you, as an entrepreneur, might have 5 or 6 or 10 different jobs you have, right? You might be doing the accounting, you might be doing the marketing, you might be doing the product creation. He just says to draw up basically a job description of each thing you do and those checklists, so you can just like take one of those pieces and outsource it to someone else. So there's all these different books that came after that, and if you look carefully, and if you read up on some of these classic ones, you'll notice that many of the newer books that come out are actually kind of knockoffs, or they try to combine these other books that kind of paved the way. So we have another saying that's called people can't separate the forest from the trees. Okay, So the forest is a big picture, the patterns you see over and over, and the trees are the shining objects that are right in front of you. And so when we see people throwing out their whole entire business for the fifth time in 5 years because some new shopping cart came along, or they, stop what they're doing for 6 months because some new webinar software comes along, we look at that and just kind of scratch our heads. I mean, I still use the same $30 headset I used 5 years ago, and I probably bought about 4 or 5 copies because the old ones broke. But I'm not going to have one of those giant like the boom mics where you got to bolt it to your desk, and then it doesn't even come out as good as if you just have a cheapo headset. I'm looking at my wall, and I have a green screen backdrop that I haven't used in 5 years, and I think I'm probably going to take it down. So that's something else that I just think about is, and maybe we'll make that the third thing for today's call, is that I look at if we have like a mess, and if that's in the real world or in our business, if I haven't touched it in a year, 2 years, and 5 years, maybe I don't need it. Look at maybe old domain names, and some of them still pay out, some of them still make the occasional sale, but I look at some of these ones and I think, I registered this in 2006, made a bunch of money, but then by 2007, 2008, I just didn't update it anymore, and then it stopped making sales in 2009. So then this domain name, I could just probably let it expire. So, there's something to be said about not being such a digital pack rat. And, maybe a couple weeks ago, I changed up my blog theme. I'm not sure if you noticed on my site, robertplank.com. So when I first got that blog, I just picked some random theme for my blog, right? The design for that web page. And I know a lot of people who they'll change their theme every week, every month, or they'll agonize for a year before actually putting their blog in. I'm thinking, even if you just use the default theme and you put out a couple of blog posts, then later on, once you decide, then you can just switch it over. But most people don't think that way, right? They think in terms of obstacles instead of going around the obstacles, or in picking your battles and just saying, okay, for now, I'll use the cheapo shopping cart. Maybe not cheapo in terms of price, but in just terms of it'll just get the job done, right? I mean, if you're already using some kind of a WordPress theme, well, just keep on using that one that's working for you. And I know that that's a little frustrating because people say, well, what's the best WordPress theme? Well, the one that you have installed right now, the one that works, right? And you don't need to throw away everything out. And so basically, I had this old blog theme, and I would every couple of months, tweak the CSS, tweak the font, tweak the way things are laid out, and it just became just too gross looking, too old-fashioned. And it got to the point where even if I was making it better, I just needed a fresh start. So I just switched the theme to the default WordPress 2012 theme. I know it's not the year 2012, but I don't like the newer ones, like 2013, 2014, not a real fan of those. But the 2012 theme, and it's just a simple, black and white design. And I did make a couple of different adjustments using a plugin called Custom CSS in WordPress. And so I wanted to make like the title of each blog post gigantic, and the link to leave a comment gigantic, just in terms of like copywriting. But I didn't change very much. And actually looking at it now, I kind of like, at least for the last while, I kind of like the plain black and white blog. Maybe I'll add my picture at some point, but I like it better than the old like blue and I mean it was kind of a cool slick setup before. It was like blue and green and orange, and I just after all those crazy colors, it's like, all right, the black and white theme, I like that the best. So, how do you make money online? You have an ugly website, you send traffic to it, you build a list, you keep promoting that list, and then we're going to close out today's call by me asking you 5 simple questions to keep it stupidly simple. All right, and I mean, you don't have to answer these. We have comments closed on the blog now, so just and these are kind of scary questions anyway. So just think about these 5 questions, and do you have them? Don't you have them? And today's call is sponsored by MembershipCube.com. So here we go. The first one is: are you building a list and are you emailing it every day? I mean, I used to just ask, do you email every day? But then people say, oh, to what list? So you need to have an email opt-in list. And I'm sure you've heard this before, but it's that important. And I hear people who, they try to count their Facebook and their Twitter as their list. And well, no, you can't. That's not your list. Facebook, they always play their cat and mouse games where they limit the number of people you can be in contact with. Twitter, I mean, if you have 1 million followers, then great. But for most of us, and especially for us internet marketers, Twitter is a place where we have 20,000 friends, they have 20,000 friends, and everyone just kind of joins and spams each other. And I mean, it's not having a Twitter list is not really going to have the reach that you want unless you're like Kim Kardashian, right? So you need to be building a list, even if it has 100 people, even if it's just an opt-in page, even if it's just a place for your buyers to opt in, well, fine. But have some kind of an email list, even if it's your clients or something. But have an email list and email it every day. I mean, you can easily, there are videos online, or I guess in our membership Cube course will show you how to get a free level for your membership site, so you can start getting those free people there. And you know what else too? Took me a couple years to figure out, so I'll shortcut you a couple years here, is you're allowed to email your customers, your buyers. I know, it's such a concept. If somebody paid me $7, there's no way they'd pay me $97 for something else. So email every day. Number 2 is one-take content. Have you noticed that, I don't know, when I record a podcast, it's a little rough. Maybe I'll pause, maybe I'll say and that's just the way it is. There's no point in me going back over today's podcast and spending 3 hours taking out all the ums and ahs. You never notice that you never really try to edit things quite right, and there's always like this weird awkward stuff, or re-recording pieces of it like it's a movie. Just forget about all that. One take content. Everyone's still going to understand what it is that you meant to say. And the thing too about one take content, when you record, say, like a quick YouTube tutorial or a podcast, then you're building up that presentation muscle so that when it comes time to maybe hop on someone else's show and do an interview. I mean, maybe you're too afraid to do your own show, but can't you just hop on someone else's show? I think you can. What about a pitch webinar? All right, are you able to show up and maybe teach something for 45 minutes and then pitch for 15 minutes? Maybe not yet, but I think that at some point you can do it. And there's no way, I mean, and maybe speaking from stage and on and on and on, but there's no way you're going to get good at presenting live unless you are used to presenting live, and that means one take content. When you record things, if you say, 20 minutes in, I messed up, better start over, that's going to give you a crutch, right? It'll make it easier for you to stop and start over than it is for you to just do things live. Number 3, another scary one, do you have a payment button online? Do you have a web page somewhere, anywhere, where I can go, that you own, that's your website, your product, and I can just pay you $10 for an ebook? I can just pay you $10 for, even if you went and bought some resale rights at masterresellrights.com, I want to pay you money. And it doesn't have to be $1,000, but it could. It could be $100 if it's something you put together, but can I just find a web page of yours that's not a coming soon page, that's not a we're closed page, but I can just go and buy from you today, right now, without me having to wait, instant download, digital delivery, and you can even set that up by going to membershipcube.com and joining our course. So number 4 is, because it's number 4, it's, are you completing 4 tasks every day? Okay, 4 simple tasks, 3 45-minute tasks, 1 15-minute tasks, and these is completing, so it's not work on download page, it's write and publish headline to download page. Okay, it's not get to 80% on the book, it's finish chapter 3 of the book. Okay, so if you total up if you just do 4 things a day, total it up by 365, that's over 1,000 different things that you've done over the course of the year, as opposed to most of your peers who get crazy, do 20 things, burn themselves out, and then they're done for the whole month. So just 4 simple things. And when you join Membership Queue, you actually get access to a Facebook group of ours called 4 Daily Tasks. And all we do in this group is post just 4 things every single day. So I'll go there right now and I'll just post my 4 things. So one of them is what I'm doing right now, and I'll post as RPS 036, so we abbreviate so people don't have to know our business, they don't have to know all of our little projects. The next thing I want to do is some Odesk stuff, so type number 2 is Odesk. The next thing is we're doing a clone meeting. You don't have to know what a clone meeting is, but it's just know that we're doing it. And the other thing is MDAU, okay? And you don't have to know what that is exactly, but I look at that and I can easily tell if I've done that or not. And then, sometimes I'll come back and I'll post at a comment under my own post, and I'll say I'm done. But the point is that just by committing to that gives a huge productivity boost. And most days I get all 4 things done, if not 3. And it might take you a little bit of calibration. You might notice that you get all your tasks done too quickly, or that you have trouble just so-called chipping away at 1 or 2. Don't ever chip away. Just get things knocked out. And so you might have to take a few tries at this to get these tasks. And even if they're just simple tasks, right? Even if one email or one task was just sending an email, even if one task was just setting up a webinar, if one task was just registering our domain name. Those are business building tasks that you could easily just get knocked out, that you probably wouldn't have completed if you didn't have a system like that, if you just left it all up to chance, or even worse, if you had some crazy system with priorities and columns and quadrants. You don't want that either. And finally, number 5, and this relates to 4 daily tasks, is, are you creating one piece of content per week? Okay, so are you putting out either a podcast episode, a YouTube tutorial, a blog post, a pitch webinar, or a webinar class? And guess what? Posting to Facebook, like we said, doesn't count. That's not your site. Mailing your list counts, but just posting to Facebook doesn't count. And so this is something that's a little bit new, but usually Lance and I do a new pitch webinar every week to promote whatever we have available. And there's been a few weeks here and there when we said, let's mix it up. Let's not do our pitch webinar this week, and let's instead just, straight up email to a replay. And what I realized was I ended up making new videos and ended up talking for 30 to 40 minutes either on a video or a podcast, and I thought, I'm kind of doing the same thing. So either way, I find myself putting out about an hour or one piece. I'm reluctant to say an hour because I know that sounds scary, but even if you made like a 10-minute YouTube video every week, and it was on something that was useful, and you pitched your product hard at the end, and you had a link so people could go there and click off the video and go and buy from you, that's once again more than most people. So in order to keep it stupidly simple, email every day, get good at one-take content, put your payment button online, complete 4 daily tasks every day, and publish 1 piece of content per week. I'm Robert Plank, and that's been Robert Plank Show, episode 36. Keep it stupidly simple. Join us in our course called membershipcube.com. You simply can't go wrong. We're going to get you to set up a single payment membership site, keeping it simple. And then create a sales letter to promote that site, keeping it really simple. And then once that grows, you can do crazy things like pull out a piece to have your free level. You can cut it up in the payment plan so that way you have a fixed term membership site. You can add a coaching upsell, like a group coaching or one-on-one, which I know sounds scary, but it's easy money. That way you have a continuity site where people can pay you over and over and over again, and more. That's at membershipcube.com. So join us right now at membershipcube.com. I'm Robert Plank, and thanks for listening.
Hey, this is Membership Cube, and I'm gonna tell you what it do. Cause this the membership site. Create, fix one's whole, yeah, that's right. Something for you to know. It's legit and useful. They use WordPress, and oh yes, they is the very, very best. Check this for yourself. You'll love it, and that's no doubt. Cause if you wanna go and get it done, then head to membershipcube.com. 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 Membershipcube.com.